Sometimes separation doesn't come as an explosion, it comes quietly, a change in tone, a distance that grows day by day, a heart that no longer feels the same connection it once did. You don't always understand it. You pray for them, you ask Allah to fix it, but instead of restoring it, Allah allows it to end, and that ending feels like heartbreak. But what if that heartbreak is actually divine protection? When Allah separates you from someone, it's not always rejection, it's redirection. You see, Allah knows conversations you never heard. He saw actions you never witnessed. He read the intentions you couldn't read, and out of mercy, He removes what would harm you, even if at that moment it feels unbearable. There are times when you ask Allah for a righteous spouse, and then He separates you from someone you thought was the one. That's not confusion, that's Allah's answer in disguise. He's saying, I heard your dua, but I must clear the path first, because what's meant for your nikah will never come through pain, deceit, or disobedience. It will come through peace, clarity, and divine timing. Every heartbreak in Islam has a hidden wisdom. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "You do not leave something for the sake of Allah except that He replaces it with something better." Sometimes that better is not just a person. It's a version of you that is healed, purified, and ready for a love written by Allah Himself. When Allah separates you, He's not breaking your story, He's protecting the next chapter. He's removing a bond that would have delayed your growth. He's freeing your heart so that it can belong fully to the one written in your Qadr. Because Allah doesn't bring your future spouse while your heart is still attached to what's temporary. He has to purify your heart first. From attachments, from false expectations, and from emotional wounds. There comes a moment in every heart's story when the warmth that once felt eternal suddenly begins to fade. You notice it slowly, a shorter message, a colder tone, a silence that stretches longer than usual, and before you can even understand what's happening, the person you once called yours becomes a stranger in front of your eyes. It's a feeling that words can't fully describe, like losing someone who's still alive. You wake up with their memory, but sleep with the weight of their absence. The same person who once understood your silence now becomes silent when you speak. You try to fix it. You reach out. You pray. You give more. You hold on, hoping that maybe love can overpower distance. But no matter how tightly you try to hold, Allah allows what's written to unfold, and it's in that unfolding that your heart breaks. Not once, but in waves. Each memory becomes a reminder of what you thought was forever. Every place you visited together becomes sacred and painful at the same time. You start questioning yourself. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? But the truth is, sometimes separation has nothing to do with your effort. It has everything to do with divine wisdom. Painful separations often carry hidden protection. What you see as rejection might be Allah's way of saying, you've walked as far as you were meant to walk with this person, because Allah knows what's ahead of you, even when your heart is stuck in what's behind you. He sees conversations you never heard, intentions you couldn't sense, and futures that would break you if He allowed them to happen. That's why He removes certain people not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. Yet in the moment, it doesn't feel like mercy. It feels like betrayal. It feels like standing in a storm, holding on to something that's already been taken by the wind. In those nights of confusion, when your heart can't stop replaying the what-ifs, Allah is quietly rewriting your destiny. He hears every tear that falls without sound. He watches every moment you pretend to be okay when you're breaking inside. And even though you don't see His plan, He is already preparing the healing before the hurt even began, because separation is not always punishment. Sometimes it's the only way Allah can free you from what would have slowly destroyed you. That's why some heartbreaks are sacred. They're not just emotional experiences, they're spiritual awakenings. Through the pain of losing someone, you rediscover the one who never leaves. Through the silence of separation, you start hearing the whispers of your soul calling you back to Allah. And when you finally realize that every loss carries a message from Him, your tears stop asking why and start saying diva, Alhamdulillah. When Allah removes someone from your life, it rarely feels like protection at first. It feels like loss, like something precious was stolen before you could understand why. Your heart aches, your mind questions, and your soul trembles under the weight of confusion. You look at the space they left behind and wonder why Allah would take away something that once brought you peace. But the truth is, Allah's protection often comes wrapped in the language of pain. What you think is destruction is sometimes divine construction, a quiet rebuilding that starts with heartbreak. Allah's mercy isn't always visible in the moment. It doesn't always arrive as ease or comfort. Sometimes it arrives as endings that break your heart before they break your faith. Because Allah knows what your heart doesn't. He knows the hidden intentions behind people's smiles. He knows what conversations happen behind your back. He knows which hearts would fail to protect yours when the tests of life begin. And because His love for you is greater than your attachment to them, He acts not according to your wishes, but according to what your soul truly needs. Think of it this way. You see one page of the story, while Allah holds the entire book. He knows what's coming next. The pain you would face, the betrayal that would crush you, or the distance that would destroy your Deen. So before your heart reaches that cliff, He intervenes. He removes the person, shuts the door, and allows your world to shake. Because if He didn't, your faith might have been the one to fall. What feels like rejection is often Allah saying, "You don't belong there. I have written something safer, purer, and more lasting for you." Sometimes, Allah's protection looks like unanswered dua. You begged Him to make it work. You prayed with sincerity, tears, and hope. But He stayed silent, and in that silence was mercy, because He saw something your love blinded you from seeing. If you could have seen what He saw, you would have thanked Him for every unanswered prayer. That's the depth of His wisdom. He protects not only your present heart, but your future peace. And what He withholds today is only to give you something better tomorrow, something that won't need to be forced, something that will carry the calm of His approval. So when people walk away, don't chase them. When doors close, don't try to break them open, because the same Lord who opened that path once can close it out of mercy. Learn to trust His closure as much as His openings. There are moments when you'll realize that being saved from someone is the greatest blessing you never asked for. And one day when your heart finally heals, you'll look back and say, "Ya Allah, thank you for protecting me, even when I didn't understand it." In every heartbreak, there's a hidden shield, invisible but real, a divine guard placed by Allah around your heart to keep you safe from what could have destroyed your peace. He removes people to make room for faith. He takes away comfort to bring you closer to contentment. And though it hurts now, soon you'll see that the protection you once cried over was the foundation of the happiness you'll one day live in. There's something beautifully mysterious about the way Allah answers du'as. You pour your heart out, asking Him for love that's pure, a spouse who brings you closer to Him, a connection that feels safe and blessed. You speak with sincerity, sometimes through tears, sometimes through silence, believing that your prayer will be answered in the way you imagine. But then, instead of uniting you with someone, Allah separates you. Instead of strengthening the bond, He allows it to break. And in that moment, your heart feels betrayed. Ya Allah, I asked you to give me peace, not pain. But what if this pain is his answer? When you ask Allah for something pure, He doesn't hand it to you wrapped in imperfection. He purifies the path first. So if you ask Him for a righteous spouse, He may first remove the person who distracts you from righteousness. If you ask Him for lasting love, He may first take away the love that's temporary. This is how Allah answers, not through immediate fulfillment, but through divine filtration. He removes what doesn't align with your dua, so that when His gift finally arrives, it fits your soul perfectly. You see, many times our duas are answered in reverse. We ask for peace, and Allah gives us heartbreak to teach us detachment. We ask for clarity, and He gives us silence to teach us reflection. We ask for the right person, and He removes the wrong one. His answers often feel like contradictions, but they are signs that He is rearranging your story with precision, because Allah is not just giving you what you ask for, He's giving you what you would ask for if you knew what He knows. Think back to the duas you made when you were broken, sincere, desperate. Maybe you said, "Ya Allah, if this person is not good for me, remove them from my life." And when that very thing happened, you forgot your own words. You forgot that you once handed your heart over to His wisdom. You forgot that sometimes His no is not denial, it's direction. The separation you're crying over might be the very mercy you asked for, disguised as pain. Not your sasas are never random. He knows which bonds would lead you away from Him. He knows which attachments would eventually take more from you than they give. So, out of love, He responds in ways your heart cannot yet decode. And one day, when the right person walks into your life, someone whose presence brings you closer to Salah, whose love strengthens your Deen, you'll realize that every heartbreak was an answered dua in disguise. The heartbreaks were just the cleansing before the blessing. So the next time something ends, don't assume your dua went unheard. Remember, Allah doesn't ignore hearts that turn to Him sincerely. He simply answers in the language of divine timing, not human urgency. And though it hurts now, the one written in your Qadr will arrive exactly when both your souls are ready to love through faith, not desire. That's when you'll truly understand how Allah's no was the beginning of His most beautiful. Yes, love is one of the greatest gifts Allah places in a human heart, but it's also one of the greatest tests. It exposes who you are when things don't go your way, when you're hurt, ignored, or abandoned. Many people think love is the destination, the point where life finally feels complete. But in truth, love is the journey, a test of patience, faith, sincerity, and purity. Allah uses love to reveal your heart to you, not to humiliate you, but to humble you, not to break you, but to bring you back to Him. Sometimes, love enters your life like a sunrise, bright, warm, and full of promise. You thank Allah for it, believing it will last forever. Yet with time, that same love begins to fade, and you wonder if you did something wrong. But in reality, every love story that ends was never meant to be your destination. It was your preparation. Allah allows some people to enter your life, not to stay but to shape you. They come to teach you what patience feels like, what letting go feels like, and most importantly, what reliance on Allah feels like when your heart is torn between love and faith. You see, if every love you experienced lasted, your heart would never know the value of sabr. You would never understand how to differentiate between attachment and affection, between emotions that feed your ego and those that purify your soul. Sometimes Allah tests you through the person you love to see whether you'll prioritize them over Him or Him over them. That's where true love begins, when you realize that loving someone for the sake of Allah means you're willing to lose them if keeping them means losing your peace with Him. Allah said in the Quran, "And we will surely test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives and fruits. But give glad tidings to the patient. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:155. And love is one of those fruits. When Allah tests you through love, He's not punishing you, He's refining your soul. He's teaching you that love should never be your God. It should be your mirror, a mirror that reflects how much of your heart still depends on the creation instead of the Creator. There are people whose love will test your sincerity. Do you love them because they make you feel good, or because they bring you closer to Allah? There are others whose departure will test your faith. Will you curse the loss, or will you trust Allah's plan through the pain? When you learn to view love as a test, not a destination, you stop expecting it to fulfill what only Allah can. You stop seeking completion in people who are just travelers in your story. You realize that love's real purpose is to guide your heart back to the one who created it. The irony of divine love is that when you pass the test, when you surrender, when you let go with peace, Allah rewards you with something even deeper. He sends you a love that doesn't test your faith, but strengthens it. A love that doesn't drain your heart, but nourishes it. And that's when you understand that every heartbreak was not a failure, but a past exam. One that prepared you for the love written in your card, the love that will feel like home because it was built under His protection. Every separation feels like the end of something sacred. It feels like the world has stopped, as if the future you imagined has shattered into pieces too small to rebuild. But what if Allah didn't allow it to end to break you? What if He ended it to prepare you? What if the distance, the silence, the loneliness that now feels unbearable is actually the divine space where Allah is reshaping your destiny, your faith, and your heart? Because sometimes the only way Allah can prepare you for what's coming is by first taking away what's holding you back. Allah never wastes separation. Every tear, every unanswered message, every sleepless night becomes part of a hidden training. He's teaching you to depend on Him, not people, to find peace in His remembrance, not in someone's presence. In those quiet, painful moments when you sit alone, wondering why it had to end, Allah is rebuilding you from within. He's polishing your character, softening your heart, and teaching you sabr in a way comfort never could. Because it's in pain that you discover how strong your faith truly is. Before Allah gives you the person written for your future nikah, He refines the version of you that will meet them. You can't build a righteous marriage with an unhealed heart. You can't expect barakah when your soul still carries bitterness. That's why the season of separation is sacred. It's where Allah removes the traces of the past, so you can embrace the future with purity. It's not punishment, it's preparation. The loneliness you feel is not emptiness, it's cleansing. Allah is washing away the emotional dust that settled on your heart, making it ready for something far better. Many people pray for a righteous spouse, but few realize that Allah answers that dua by first preparing them to be a righteous spouse themselves. The waiting period between heartbreak and healing is not wasted time, it's transformation time. Allah is teaching you emotional balance, wisdom and patience, the very qualities that will sustain your future marriage. Because Nikah is not just about finding love, it's about sustaining love through mercy, forgiveness and taqwa. And those qualities are born through struggle, not ease. When you look back years later, you'll realize that what you called heartbreak was actually training. The distance was development. The silence was healing. The tears were purification. Because Allah doesn't separate you just to leave you broken. He separates you to rebuild you on stronger foundations. Every soul that walks away leaves a space for Allah to fill. And when He fills it, you become someone capable of loving without losing yourself, of caring without clinging, of trusting without fear. So when you find yourself alone after separation, don't see it as emptiness. See it as enrollment. You've entered Allah's school of spiritual growth. The lessons are painful, yes, but the graduation is beautiful. And when your Qadr finally arrives, when the one written for you walks into your life, you'll thank Allah for every sleepless night that once felt unbearable, because you'll see that what He took away wasn't punishment. It was preparation for a love that would lead you not just to happiness, but to Jannah. When something you prayed for doesn't work out, your first instinct is often heartbreak. You feel betrayed by your own hope. You look at the pieces of your dream and wonder why Allah let you come so close, only to take it away. But that's where the beauty of redirection lies. Allah never truly takes something from you without replacing it with something better. He never closes a door unless the hallway ahead leads to something more blessed. It's just that in the moment, the closed door feels like the end of your story, when in reality, it's the beginning of His. Redirection is Allah's way of realigning your path with your purpose. You may have wanted something with all your heart, believing it was right for you. But Allah knows how even the most beautiful things can become a distraction if they arrive before you're ready. So He shifts you gently, sometimes painfully, from what you want to what you need. He rearranges your story so that your heartbreak becomes your awakening, because every no from Allah carries within it a not yet, or not this, never, never. Sometimes you'll notice that just when you are about to lose yourself in love, Allah intervened, maybe through distance, disagreement, or disappointment. It's as if He's saying, I will not let you destroy your peace, chasing what's not written for you. And though it hurts, that's mercy in disguise, because the path that Allah blocks is often the one that would have led you away from Him. The person He removes may have been the one who would have tested your faith beyond repair. His redirection doesn't mean He's ignoring your dua. It means He's editing your story for your protection. And perhaps while you're crying over what's gone, the one written for you is somewhere in their own season of redirection. Maybe they're also healing from heartbreak, praying for clarity, unaware that every delay is bringing both of you closer together. That's the beauty of divine timing. It synchronizes two destinies that once walked in separate pain. Allah's redirection isn't random. It's a map where every detour still leads to your destination. It's not punishment. It's preparation meeting precision. You'll see it one day when you finally meet the person who speaks your soul's language, who makes you remember Allah more than yourself, who brings serenity instead of confusion. You'll look back at every heartbreak, every closed door, and realize none of it was wasted. You'll whisper, Alhamdulillah, for the doors that never opened, for the roads that ended, for the love that slipped away, because they were all arrows pointing you toward what's truly yours. That's the hidden beauty of redirection. Allah doesn't just guide your feet, He guides your heart. He doesn't just remove what harms you, He teaches you why it had to leave. And once your heart finally understands that every redirection is divine protection, peace replaces pain. You stop asking why and start saying, Ya Allah, wherever you take me, I trust you completely. And that trust, that surrender, becomes the light that leads you straight into the love written for your future Nikah. When Allah separates you from someone, He often replaces their presence with solitude, a silence so heavy it feels almost unbearable at first. The nights become longer, the days feel emptier, and every corner of your mind echoes with memories you wish you could forget. But that silence is not punishment. That loneliness is not abandonment. It's a sacred space Allah creates around you so that you can finally hear what you couldn't when the noise of the world surrounded you, His voice calling your heart back to Him. Solitude is where healing begins. It's where your heart, once distracted by love, begins to remember its first love, Allah. You start talking to Him in the same way you once talked to them. You tell him what hurts, what confuses you, what scares you, and slowly the tears that once fell out of heartbreak begin to fall out of peace. You realize that you were never truly alone. You were just too surrounded to notice the one who never left. In the quiet of solitude, Allah begins to rebuild you, not as who you were before, but as who you were always meant to be. This period of isolation is like divine surgery. Allah removes what was toxic to your soul, your attachments, your illusions, your dependence on people, and replaces them with clarity, tawakkul, and peace. It hurts because the surgery is internal. You can't see the process, but you feel it deeply. Every tear, every lonely night, every silent dua is a part of that healing. And when you surrender to it, when you stop resisting the stillness, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Calmness that doesn't depend on anyone else. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to retreat into solitude in the cave of Hira before receiving revelation. In that silence, Allah prepared him for the weight of the message that would change the world. Likewise, your solitude isn't meaningless. It's your personal cave of transformation. Allah isolates you not to deprive you of love, but to deepen your capacity for it. Because when your heart learns to find fulfillment in Him alone, you become unshakable. No person can destroy your peace, because no person is the source of it anymore. It's in solitude that you rediscover your purpose. You begin to understand that love, career, heartbreak, all of it, are just chapters in a much bigger book. And the author of that book is teaching you that peace doesn't come from who stands beside you, but from who stands above you. This awareness changes everything. You stop begging people to stay and start asking Allah to guide whoever is meant to walk with you. You start focusing less on being loved and more on being worthy of divine love. One day, you'll look back and realize that solitude was not the absence of companionship. It was the presence of Allah in its purest form. It was in those quiet nights that you found your strength. It was in those moments of stillness that you learned to love without losing yourself. And by the time Allah sends the one written for your Nikah, you'll no longer be searching to be completed. You'll already be whole. That's the transformation hidden in solitude. Allah takes your brokenness and turns it into independence through Him, preparing you to love again, not out of need, but out of faith. One of the hardest lessons Allah teaches the heart through separation is the difference between attachment and love. At first, they look the same. Both make you care deeply. Both make you feel connected. Both make you want to stay. But when Allah removes someone from your life, you begin to see the truth. Attachment drains you, while love frees you. Attachment makes you worship creation. Love makes you remember the Creator. Attachment depends on constant reassurance. Love depends on faith. That's why Allah separates you from people who were never meant to be your source of peace, because He wants you to find peace that doesn't depend on anyone but Him. Attachment says, I can't live without them. Love says, even if I lose them, I'll survive with Allah. Attachment clings to the person. Love trusts the plan. Attachment is rooted in fear, fear of loss, fear of loneliness, fear of change. Love, on the other hand, is rooted in tawakkul, the trust that whatever belongs to you will find you again through Allah's will. When Allah takes away what you were attached to, He's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to detox your heart from dependence on what was never meant to control you, because the heart that belongs to Allah can never be enslaved by anyone else. The truth is, many people mistake attachment for love because attachment feels intense. It keeps you checking your phone, replaying conversations, overthinking every word. But that's not love. That's anxiety. True love doesn't make you lose sleep in fear. It brings you peace, even when things are uncertain. It doesn't pull you away from your salah. It makes you fall into sujood more often. That's how you know the difference. Anything that weakens your connection with Allah is not love. It's attachment disguised as affection. Sometimes Allah lets you experience attachment so that when He gives you real love, you recognize it instantly. You'll see the difference in how it feels. The wrong one made you restless. The right one will make you calm. The wrong one made you question your worth. The right one will remind you of your value through Allah. The wrong one made you chase. The right one will meet you halfway through sincerity and intention. But to recognize that love, you must first be healed from attachment, and that's why separation is necessary. It's the medicine that clears your heart from illusion. When Allah finally replaces your attachment with true love, you'll understand why the pain was necessary. You'll look back at the times you begged for something temporary and smile through tears, saying, "Ya Allah, you knew what I didn't." Because attachment teaches you that what leaves you wasn't love, and what stays through hardship is what's written. The person meant for your nikah will never compete with Allah for space in your heart. They'll help you protect it. Their presence won't distract you from nikah. It will make you remember Him more. So don't mourn what Allah took. Thank Him. Thank Him for saving you from mistaking emotional dependence for divine love. Thank Him for teaching you that true love doesn't make you forget your purpose. It deepens it. One day you'll feel it. A love that doesn't burn or break. A love that feels like worship, calm and complete. That's the kind of love Allah prepares you for after every heartbreak. Not attachment that blinds you, but love that brings you home, back to Him. When two souls are written for each other, time itself becomes part of the test. You may meet too early. When both hearts are unprepared, you may meet too late. After distance and heartbreak have already shaped your stories. You may even meet, fall apart, and then wonder why Allah let you cross paths at all. But what you see as a delay or separation is often Allah aligning two destinies that are still being refined. Because divine reunion doesn't happen when you want it. It happens when both hearts are ready. Allah's timing is perfect, even when it feels cruel. Sometimes He allows you to meet someone before your maturity is ready to handle the kind of love you prayed for. He lets you feel what connection means so that when you lose it, you learn what patience and faith truly mean. Every delay, every heartbreak, every period of silence is Allah preparing both souls for a love that will last, not through desire but through Deen. He withholds union not to punish you, but to synchronize your growth with your future spouse's growth, until you both mirror the lessons He wanted you to learn separately. You might look at others getting married, moving on, and wonder, why not me? But you must remember, your story is not late. It's custom-made. Allah doesn't use clocks. He uses hearts. He delays your meeting not because you're forgotten, but because He's still polishing your soul. He's removing pride, impatience, fear, or emotional dependency. All the things that would poison what's meant to be pure. Because if He united you too early, you might love them for the wrong reasons, and Allah never writes sacred unions upon foundations of weakness. Sometimes, both of you are walking separate paths, praying the same dua without even knowing it. You're healing from heartbreaks, learning forgiveness, and seeking closeness to Allah, all while He's doing the same somewhere else. You both carry scars that one day will make you understand each other without words. That's what divine timing does. It aligns two hearts through struggle. So when they finally meet, they don't just love, they recognize. And when recognition happens through Allah's will, it feels peaceful, not rushed, familiar, not forced. So don't be disheartened by delay. Don't think Allah has forgotten your dua. The waiting is not wasted. It's building you into someone who can protect what's coming. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Know that what has passed you by was never going to befall you, and what has befallen you was never going to pass you by." When you trust this, patience becomes easier. You begin to see that Allah's timing isn't about withholding love. It's about preserving its purity, because when the reunion happens, it will be effortless. You won't have to chase, convince, or doubt. It will simply fit, like a soul finding its missing piece. And when that day comes, you'll look at them and realize that every unanswered dua, every tearful night, and every painful delay was leading you here. You'll whisper, "Ya Allah, now I understand why you made me wait." Because divine love is not fast, it's flawless. It arrives when both hearts have learned that love is not about possession, it's about purpose. And the purpose of every union written by Allah is to bring both souls closer to Him. That's the true timing of divine reunion, not when you expect it, but when it will lead you home. One day, long after the tears have dried and the ache has softened, you'll look back at everything you thought was breaking you, and you'll see how it was building you. You'll remember the moments you cried in sujood, asking Allah why, and you'll realize that every unanswered question was being answered in silence. The person who left, the love that ended, the doors that closed, none of it was a loss. It was protection written in mercy. And the same heart that once bled from confusion will smile with clarity, whispering, "Ya Allah, you were protecting me all along." You'll understand that Allah never took anything away from you, He only redirected it. The heartbreak that made you question His plan was actually the doorway that led you back to it. The silence that felt empty was where He spoke the loudest. The loneliness that once scared you became the place where you met Him most sincerely. You'll see how every moment of separation was a bridge toward self-awareness, purification, and divine connection. What once felt like pain will now look like a mercy you couldn't recognize at the time. Gratitude will replace grief. You'll thank Allah for not giving you what you wanted, because if He had, you would have settled for less than what you needed. You'll thank Him for closing doors you tried to break open, for removing people you were too blind to let go of, and for every delay that now makes perfect sense. You'll realize that His timing wasn't slow, it was sacred. His no wasn't rejection, it was redirection. His distance wasn't absence, it was attention. Every hardship was His way of saying, "I love you too much to let you walk into harm." And when you finally meet the one written in your Qadr, the person who loves you through faith, not feeling through patience, not pressure, everything will click into place. You'll feel peace that doesn't fluctuate, love that doesn't demand, and companionship that feels like worship. You'll understand why Allah had to separate you before, because you both needed to grow separately to meet beautifully. You'll see that what He withheld earlier, He was saving for the moment when your heart was mature enough to protect it. That's when gratitude will overflow from your soul, not just for the person He gave, but for the person He made you become through the waiting. And in that realization, you'll see the perfection of Allah's plan. You'll understand that no heartbreak, no delay, no silence was ever wasted. It all led you here, to a place where you love with awareness, trust with peace, and surrender without fear. You'll finally whisper, "Alhamdulillah, for every separation that led me back to you, Ya Allah. Alhamdulillah for the story I didn't choose, because yours was always better." That's the ultimate realization, that every pain, every loss, and every separation was not meant to break your heart, but to purify it until it could love in the way Allah designed, with patience, with purity, and with peace. Because when Allah separates you, it's never the end. It's the beginning of something that was always meant to bring you closer to Him, and closer to the person who was written for your future. Nikah all along.